Protestants are divided now more than ever before, and they can't seem to agree on anything except for this one thing that I'm going to share with you in this video. And this is intellectually what Protestantism leads to. It leads to division and splintering of Christendom ultimately, because we are visible people. We have real bodies, we have real senses, we have real imaginations. You can see me, and I can do the same to you, and we need a church that corresponds to our nature. An invisible church guided by the Holy Spirit doesn't work. And if you don't believe me, just look at the fruits of the Protestant Reformation. We now have 40,000 different flavors of Christianity, and there's only one church that's been there since day zero. And we all know that's a Catholic church. So let's take a look at the one thing that Protestants can agree upon. And I want to do a little reaction in this too, to the first couple minutes of this video, where a few Protestants are actually talking about the Eucharist.
Real presence simply means that Christ's body and blood are really present in the consecrated wine and bread of the Eucharist, or the Lord's Supper, or communion, you can call it. So in my tradition, the way I like to put it is that the one who participates worthily in the Lord's Supper, that is by faith, truly is feasting upon Christ and his benefits in the gospel. This is more than a mere remembrance of Christ. Christ is active, giving himself to us in an intimate way in this sacrament. Now, lots of people are surprised to discover that as a Baptist, as a Baptist, you really believe in real presence. Yes, actually, real presence.
Okay, so he's talking about the real presence there. Two Protestants out there, maybe somebody can let me know in the comments, but I am very confused on this point. I don't understand it at all. Who has the authority to consecrate the Eucharist? For a Baptist, like Gavin is, he says that he believes in the real presence. Okay, I'm baptized validly. I think he might even say I was validly baptized as a baby. So can I just pick up any piece of bread, say this is my body, and make it Christ? Can a woman do that? Can an unbaptized person do that? Why can one person do it and not another? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. There has to be an authority or a power that's transferred from God to an individual in order to make the Eucharist appear, in order to consecrate the Eucharist. So for Protestants watching this, please let me know in the comments, why would person A have the ability to consecrate the Eucharist and not person B? If you don't believe in apostolic succession, and you don't believe that that authority and that power comes from God through Christ, through the apostles, to the bishops today, and then to the priests, if you don't believe that, then why can somebody who's not ordained by the apostles consecrate the Eucharist, and another person can't? And who can and who can't? Somebody please just lay that out for me in the comments. I am super confused on that point, and it seems logically incoherent from my perspective. Let's continue here, and then I'll tell you the only thing Protestants actually agree on.
Presence is the historic Baptist view. Nobody knows this. It's amazing. In the video description, I'm going to link to a tweet thread I put out documenting that claim. Real presence is the historic majority, by a wide margin, Baptist view. Check that out if you're interested. Now, some Protestants are very nervous about real presence because it sounds too much like what they regard as the erroneous views in other traditions like transubstantiation in the Roman Catholic tradition. And so they want to reject real presence altogether. I think that's a big mistake for the reasons I'll get into here. It's not the...
If you reject transubstantiation, then what do you mean by real presence? So it looks like he's saying that they accept the real presence, but then they deny the vocabulary that goes along with the real presence. So I don't know what they mean by the real presence. I have no idea.
If you're interested in how for example, Protestant views like a Reformed view, the view that I hold, would differ from, say, transubstantiation, one of the favorite dialogues I've ever had, maybe my favorite one, is with Brett Salkeld on Gospel Simplicity, where we talked about this, and I gave various ways of understanding a Reformed view and how it's different from, say, a Roman Catholic view. And you can check out that video in the video description. You'll find lots of quotes from the great Protestant giants on the Lord's Supper, like Martin Bucer, Peter Martyr Vermigli, Thomas Cranmer, etc. Lots of quotes like this one I'll put up from Bucer, where you get these great adverbs that clarify things. The body and blood of Christ are truly and substantially present, but not locally and carnally. And you can get into all that in that video.
Okay. So here's the crux of it. He got together with a few other Protestants, and they discussed their views on the real presence. And what it ultimately devolves into is a session of sharing your feelings with other Protestants about how you feel about this or that Bible verse. None of those guys that he just referenced as being authoritative on the Eucharist and his tradition actually have any authority. There is nobody that Protestants can look to and say, look, we all agree on these doctrines, so let's build the church around that. Christians in general don't have that. Protestants don't have that. It's only found in the Catholics and to a certain extent in the Orthodox. But there is no body, there's no corpus, there's no structure, there's no fundamental set of beliefs that you have to believe in order to be a Protestant. You can believe almost anything you want and be a Protestant. And Protestants will come back and say, oh, we all believe in the divinity of Christ, and oh, we all believe in the baptismal regeneration. Okay, well, I've talked to Protestants who don't believe in baptismal regeneration. I've talked to them. And you say, well, then they're not really Christian and they're not really Protestant. Who judges that? Who is in charge of that? Who judges that? Nobody has any authority. So this is what I've found is the one thing that holds Protestants together and unites them, even though they don't agree on doctrine and they don't agree on discipline and practice and when to baptize and how to baptize. They don't agree on any of that. The only thing that unites Protestants together and keeps them as a Protestant body is their protestation of the Catholic Church. If the Catholic Church went away tomorrow, Protestants would have no reason to exist anymore. The reason that the Protestant Reformation started was not to affirm certain doctrines that had been there since the beginning, like Luther wants you to believe. That's false, that's fictitious. The reason the Protestant Reformation started is because an Augustinian priest didn't want to be under the thumb of his superiors anymore. And he pitched this idea to a bunch of princes in Europe. And they said, wait, if I listen to your religion, I don't have to be approved by the Pope anymore and I can do whatever I want and have looser morals? Luther said, yeah. And the princes said, great. And then forced everybody underneath them to convert. That's why Protestantism exists. It's a protestation of the Catholic Church. And if you don't believe me, look at the name Protestant. Protestants don't stand for things. They stand against the Catholic Church. They're parasitic by nature. So if the Catholic Church went away, then the host organism has died and the parasite will follow suit. Protestantism only exists because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Lutherans, Baptists, Calvinists, they don't agree on much. They really don't, in practice and in doctrine. What unites them together and keeps them from attacking one another is that they have a much bigger older brother named the Catholic Church, and they all team up against him. So what does this all boil down to? Unity is absolutely impossible. Absolutely impossible without a visible head. For human beings, that is simply the case. And there's two options if you are a Christian. You can either believe that the Christ founded a church on Peter, and that church is still here today. If you believe that, then there's only one option for which church that is. That's the Holy Catholic Church. It's the only option. Nobody else claims to be the successor of Peter. Nobody. Only the Pope in Rome even claims to be the successor of Peter. So if you think that the church that Christ started is still here today, there's only one option for who it could be, where it could be. There's only one church that fits the bill. Whenever Steve Jobs died, they appointed somebody to take his place. Whenever a president's term ends, they elect somebody new to take his place. It's the same thing with the office of the papacy. After Peter died, they elected somebody to take his place. And after that person died, they elected somebody else, etc., 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 all the way down to the present age. And that's what Pope Francis is. He's a successor of Peter, the first pope. So to conclude, if you want to have unity, like Christ prays for when he says that they all may be one as the Father and I are one, you will not find it in Protestantism. It's impossible, because there are as many different versions or interpretations of the gospel as there are people on earth. And there needs to be some visible representative that can take the gospel and authoritatively say, yes, this is what Christ and the apostles meant when they said this. And no, that is not safe doctrine. Stay away from that. It has to be a visible, hierarchical structure in order for us to have any unity the way that Christ wanted. To any Protestants who made it to the end of the video, thank you for watching. If you disagreed with me, I want you to please express what you thought in the comments, and I'll do my best to try to respond as honestly as I can and as quickly as I can. But I just want to say that even though my words can sometimes be quite direct, I'm just speaking from the heart. My intention is not to divide and not to attack, but it's to honestly present the gospel and present the church's teachings to the best of my ability as I see it. So that's what I'm doing here, and if you disagree with me, please know that we can disagree and still be charitable to one another. So God bless you.